Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Protecting Office 365, Adding Defense in Depth to Your Office 365 Deployments. I'm Sarah Duffy, Marketing Manager here at Intronis, and I'm happy to be moderating today's session. During today's session, if you have any questions, you can submit them in the questions panel to the right of the GoToWebinar screen. At the conclusion of the webinar, you will be prompted to complete a brief survey. Please take a moment to tell us what you think, as we are continuously improving the content and quality of our online events and really appreciate what you guys have to say about our webinars. Today's webinar is presented by Mike Parkin, Technical Marketing Engineer here at Barracuda, who will discuss how to better protect your Office 365 deployments. Now, without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to Mike. Take it away, Mike.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm Mike Parkin. I'm a technical marketing engineer here at Barracuda Networks. I always put my technical marketing, I always put marketing is in lowercase italic. I have a background in security operations, penetration testing, vulnerability research, etc. And that's where I come to this from. That's the approach I take. I'm going to be looking at the questions. I will be picking them up as I go. If there's good breakpoints, I will address them, but most of them I'm going to save to the end if we can. I do have the first question being asked is, I guess Sarah's already answered, is that yes, this is going to be recorded and you will get access to the recording after we're done. So without further ado, let me get going here. So as Sarah said, we're talking about protecting Office 365 by adding a defense in depth to your existing deployment. So Office 365, Microsoft introduced in 2011, and since then it's really become to be kind of the premier software as a service application for Office productivity suite. So they got Word, Excel, etc. And it's a very good suite. It's cross-platform capable. You can use it with your Mac, you can use it with your PC. If you're a Linux or BSD user, you can actually use it on the web. And they've got mobile versions for iOS, for Macintosh or Apple community, and for Android, for the Android community as well. Many of you are already on Office 365 or planning to go to Office 365 sometime in the near future for understandable reasons. I mean, why are you going? Well, the obvious reasons are actually pretty obvious as why to move to 365. It's very cost effective. It's actually less expensive on some levels than getting licenses for everything, and then renewing those licenses as time goes on, because if you're in Office 365, you always have the most recent version of the Microsoft Office product suite that's included. It's eminently scalable. You can go from a single user shop, one or two users, a handful of people, all the way up to having full enterprise productivity suite. All right, there's a lot of large enterprises that use it. I've used it myself. Management is simplified, in which they have a single pane of glass that lets you manage all of your functionality. But more on that later, because it can get somewhat complicated with all the features involved. And of course, as I mentioned, the cross-platform versatility. If you're a Mac user, you can use it. If you're a PC user, you can use it. Even if you're iPhone, iPad, Android tablet, or phone, you actually have this full capability to use it no matter where you go, which is a pretty cool feature. So what about security? Microsoft's done a world-class job of securing their infrastructure. They are actually really cool about it. They've got a number of videos online, a number of white papers where they talk about it. I was a pen tester for the Federal Reserve, and when I was with the Fed, I got to be up close and personal and hands-on with some serious security. Microsoft security on their data centers rivals it, minus the guys with the guns. But they do a really good job. But what do they do to protect you as a user separate from the infrastructure? How are they protecting their clients who are using Office 365, using Azure, etc.? And they have two separate solutions for doing that. The first level is Exchange Online Protection, which they've had for a while. That is included with Office 365. So if you're using Exchange Online, you automatically get EOP, which is their base level of security. As an added option, you can get their advanced threat protection capability, which adds zero-day protections, et cetera, and a few other features that don't come with EOP. It's fairly powerful, but a little pricey. Oops. So EOP by itself offers spam filtering, antivirus capability, and anti-malware. Those are kind of table stakes. That's what you expect everything to have. You would expect no less. For ATP, they add a layer of protection from advanced threats. So this is where you get your zero-day protection. This is where they're doing sandboxing. This is where they're doing holistic analysis, etc. They add link protection at that point, which is something we actually include. And this is an additional cost subscription for Office 365. It's actually included with it if you get their E5 level, which is their highest level of the Office 365 suite, which is quite an expensive option. Not sure what discount pricing is, but as I remember right, it's over $35 a user a month to have the E5 level of service with them. So what's missing from this? Between EOP and ATP, you'd expect to have them a pretty complete defense against email attacks, or is it? You know, so why would you want to have additional layers? What would you need these additional layers for? And that's a very good question. You know, why should you work with us, work with our partners in Tronus, and get additional layers of defense added on top of what Microsoft provides? So to answer that question, from the most basic, security best practices are going to include doing defense in depth. You add additional layers of defense. Some of you have been around, I'm sure, long enough to remember the old days where we had a single firewall. You operated behind, everything else operated behind the firewall, and the term, the hard crunchy shell with the soft chewy middle. That's a long time ago. And even then, as time has gone on, we've developed the capabilities and the realization that you needed to add additional layers of defense to provide the kind of protection you really need in the real world. Going with multiple vendors is a separate advantage there. There's something to be said for having a one-stop shop. Gives you one person to blame if something goes wrong. But there's also the ability to add, by adding multiple vendors, you have, if one is going down or is having problems, you have the others that you can rely on to add additional layers of defense. And one of the things that goes right in hand with multiple vendors is that we use multiple defensive techniques. Microsoft is very good at what they do. They wrote the operating system. They wrote the virtual machine that Azure is Azure, and all the virtual machines that runs in it. So they wrote Office 365, they wrote the VM that it's running on top of, etc. So they know what's going on, but at the same time, they have their way of looking at things and doing things. And attackers know that. So by using different vendors, bringing us into the picture, you're actually able to use different set of defensive techniques that Microsoft themselves may not be using. So without even considering the defense in depth capability, the defense in depth aspects of this, are there any security challenges existing to already using with Office 365? Are there any challenges to working with Microsoft on this? And one of the things that comes up is that, I mentioned that they have a single pane of glass interface. The problem is their UI can be somewhat complex. Finding the exact piece you need to do what you need to do can be somewhat time consuming and somewhat convoluted. It can be quite challenging at times to find what you need, especially with security functionality. Their enterprise level stuff is quite good, but again, it's really difficult to find exactly what you want to do. There's many buttons and knobs you can twist, but finding where they buried those buttons and knobs can be a challenge. So for spam filtering, Microsoft has been doing this for a while. We've been doing it for a while. If you look in the real world, you look at various real world reports, third-party reports, and user reports, Microsoft is okay at spam filtering. They're not known for their efficacy with EOP or ATP for blocking spam. It's been an issue for them. Processing time for their advanced threats, they run everything through ATP, much like we do if you're using our ATP service, but their ATP system can be quite slow. It is not uncommon to have a half-hour delay. They do have what's known as dynamic delivery, in which they'll tell you that this file is undergoing review and it will be available to you at some time in the future. We'll let you know. With us, we have a very, very small number that are ever delayed to actually go through all of our layers of advanced threat protection. And there's potential security challenges with Microsoft is that they're good at what they do, but they're also the 800-pound gorilla. They are the big target. They are the one that every single attacker out there, unless they are very specialized, going after Android or going after BSD or something, they are going after Microsoft. So you can bet that any of these attackers out there have accounts on Office 365, they send their spam at it, they send their malware at it, and they test against Microsoft defenses. Part of the reason for the defense is in depth. You're the big target, you're the one everybody's going against. That's why there's so many attacks against the Microsoft operating system and Microsoft products. Some of the things we haven't even talked about and aren't necessarily always thought of in a security context is the ability to have offsite backups. What happens in case there's a breach? Microsoft, you can roll back to old versions, but if their files are deliberately deleted, etc., you can't necessarily recover them using Office 365 and OneDrive. A journal archive. If you're in an organization, an industry that actually requires archiving for your email, if you're in legal or finance, medical profession, even education, you can have cases where you actually need to be able to keep email communication in an untouchable form, an immutable form. And while Microsoft gives you the option to put a litigation hold on an email box, until that hold goes in place, users can actually delete their own email. So that's something that we cover that Microsoft by default isn't actually protecting you against. So what pieces are missing? Right? There is more to Office 365 than meets the eye. We know that. More to the security than meets the eye. And it takes more than the obvious pieces to complete the picture. So how do we complete the picture for you? We at Barracuda, through Intronus, take a three-step approach to this. First, we look at detection. That is not intrusion detection, the way you would think of it, where you've got a device on your network to look at people attacking you. This is actually detecting threats that have already somehow made it into your environment. Next, we deal with prevention. This is where your IDS would come in. But for us, it's our tools that are specifically there to help stop attacks against your email infrastructure and your users on your email. And then recovery. So even with 99.99 multiple levels of defenses, things sometimes get through. Anyone who claims they're 100% proof against every attack is lying to you. That's a fact. Even we're not 100%. We're really good at what we do, but things occasionally get through. That's just the nature of the beast. And it's not always through email. There's different ways these things can do. From pen testing, I can tell you that leaving a thumb drive in the parking lot or leaving a CD-ROM in a bathroom that has hand labeled on it, VP's presentation on quarterly financial report, and leave that in the bathroom somewhere. Somebody's going to drop that in their CD-ROM and look at it just to see what the video is. And of course, you include the video, but you also include other stuff on there to get a successful attack. So it's ways to get around even any of the defenses you got in place, which is why recovery is there. So we're uniquely positioned to complete the security picture for Office 365. They give good capabilities. We actually add on top of that and add additional layers that they don't have. Barracuda is the one we can fill in the gaps in Microsoft's defense. So on the detection side, we offer the Exchange Threat Scanner for Office 365. So if you use Exchange, you haven't yet migrated to Office 365, we have two versions. We have one that's physical layer, and we have the cloud-based layer. In this one, I'm going to talk about the cloud-based layer. Exchange your Exchange Online email mailboxes for existing threats. I keep bumping my mouse, sorry. It's cloud-based. It's free to run. You can run it as often as you'd like. It's a discovery tool. It's not a remediation tool, but it's a discovery tool and let you see anything that's already made it in. So if you don't yet have Barracuda Essentials or any of our other tools, this would let you see what may have already made it past Microsoft defenses. And here's a quick look at some of the things. This is an example of the report that it will give you. It'll give you various different risk levels, etc., showing you the kind of things that have come through attack-wise and giving you an overall look at what your particular results were. This was a particularly vulnerable location that we used for this example. We have the Exchange version of it that goes for on-site Exchange that is designed to run if you haven't yet moved to Office 365 or you're in a hybrid environment where some of your email boxes are still on premises because you haven't moved off Exchange servers into the cloud fully. This gives you that capability to scan those. This runs as local host. Again, it's free of charge and leverages your existing Microsoft Outlook client. Runs on 2013 through 2016, the different Outlook versions. Will run on 2010, isn't officially supported. Might run on 2007. If you ever try to run on 2007, let me know. I don't know if it will work. It probably will. It's not officially supported on that older version. So on the prevention side, we offer Barracuda Essentials. Range of other products as well, but we're talking about Essentials specifically for Office 365. There's another version of this that if you're a G Suite user, for example, and just have cloud-based email and stuff, we have another version that is virtually identical. There's only one difference: is there's one component that is dedicated to Office 365. It's not available on other platforms. Supervised layer of email security. One thing we're known for is world-class spam filtering. Anti-phishing protection, so phishing attacks. For those who aren't familiar with it, I'm sure most of you already are familiar with what phishing is, but phishing is where spam in general is just shotgunning everything. Phishing is where they are looking for something. They use a hook. It's actually designed to get more accurate. Spear phishing, the most advanced version of that, is where they actually target somebody very specific in your organization. And I actually do another webinar that if you talk to our friends here in Turnus, my other side of the house, they can hook you up with one the next time I do that presentation, because it talks about spear phishing and ransomware and how to avoid that. And then we add link protection. This is something that's an option with Microsoft when it comes to their ATP level. This is something we include with every level, and that we include it across our line. Link protection protects you from malicious websites. It's designed specifically to rewrite a website to a redirect. It's not a proxy, it's a redirect. And what it will do is if the site is bad, it will pop up a warning. If the site is good, no problem, it's cool. We just redirect you. We don't proxy. We don't look at anything you're doing. We just protect you from the bad ones. Let me give you a quick view of what that looks like. So we've got a link that's in a spam email. It's a bad one, so it pops up, shows you that it's a threat, and then we have the ability to give you on-the-spot user training, which is something that is pretty unique to Barracuda for that capability. And that's included in link protection, which is included in all of our levels of service with Barracuda Essentials. So we can scan incoming attachments. We do antivirus, anti-malware, etc. This lets us protect you against the more common threats. And that's in every level, even without adding the advanced threat protection capability. The Advanced Threat Protection capability, ATP, is the latest addition to the suite. What this does is this gives you protection against zero-day attacks. This lets you stop things that have never been seen before, uses multiple layers of defense, does heuristic analysis, etc. So we start out with multiple layers of defense, add heuristic and static analysis, in which we are basically looking at the code, how the code goes together, various features, file entropy, etc. We look to it at a very deep level. And then finally, we pass it into a CPU emulated sandbox. Now, in reality, only a very, very small percentage of the files we view actually need to go up to the sandbox for identification. Most files, the reality is most of the files on the internet, even ones we've never seen before, aren't actually malicious. So we're able to identify the benign ones early on. The malicious ones most of those are actually identified in the heuristic layer, heuristic and static analysis layers, machine learning involved, so that's always constantly improving. And then finally it goes to the CPU emulated sandbox to get that final level of percentage that is still a little bit iffy, so let's see what it really does. So we get multiple feed sources for this. There's a lot of machine learning involved. And one of the things that's fairly important to machine learning is having a lot of high quality data to work from. So what have you fed it? What kind of good files have you shown it? What kind of bad files have you shown it? How have you trained it? And training requires volume and quality. And that's something where Barracuda has a real advantage over nearly all the competition. So we get feeds from the email security, which is what we're looking at here with Exchange Online. Our web security gateways, that our web security service, both of which are either virtual physical appliance or a cloud service. Those also leverage the advanced threat prevention capability. And what they do is they're looking at a different set of files. You have different kinds of files that come through. Those also provide ATP with data for it to chew on to make the machine learning even better. And then our next generation firewall, another service that we have, another capability that we have that also feeds in and leverages this capability. So it's across the entire Barracuda portfolio, which is a real strength for us in this ability to provide, real first-class protection against zero-day threats. A little bit more detail on how this is working. So at the first level, there's a signature analysis. Looks at it and says, okay, have we seen this before? This is also multi-opinionated AV, multi-opinion AV as well as opinionated, in which we run multiple antivirus engines and get multiple hits, multiple looks at it. So different people, as I mentioned, different techniques, different AV vendors use different techniques, and this is something that we leverage here. Then we go into behavioral and static analysis. We look at how the file is put together, and it finally goes to the CPU emulated sandbox. And all of this is interrelating with some machine learning to improve the performance. So we're looking at the network. We're looking at email, which is, of course, the most important for you here. We're looking at web browsing, people outbound. We're looking at mobile users through our web security service, and we're looking at web applications, the application layer. We have honeypots that when people try to make attacks, we have honeypots out there, which are attractive targets that we lure hackers to say, hey, what are you doing? Let's see what you got. And we can then leverage that capability. We have web crawlers out there that are actually looking across the web, much like Google or Yahoo or any of the other crawlers, except ours are specifically looking for malware. This slide is a little bit old in that we're actually over 250,000 deployments. We have a huge base coming in. We get customer submissions. Customers will see a suspicious file sometimes. They will actually send us the suspicious file in order for us to try and review it for them and see what's going on. And then we have a dedicated team in South San Jose, California here, not too far from my headquarters here in Campbell, where I am right now. Barracuda Labs, their whole role is to do vulnerability research and add new files, new threats that they find added into the system. And then we get it through the email security service, the security gateway. ESS is part of Essentials. web security gateway, the next-gen firewall, and the web application firewall. All of these all feed together to make it a very, very powerful solution. And then occasionally even things will manage to creep through. I mentioned, a thumb drive or something. There's ways that can get through, even if your email defenses are perfect. Sometimes a file creeps through, malware creeps through, and things get broken. You get attacked, or you get a user who's, for whatever reason has decided they're just going to mass delete everything they have access to. And for that, the ability to recover from that, we have the Echo platform, part of which is an Acronis platform, and then the Barracuda cloud backup capability. That cloud backup, by the way, is the only component that is unique within Essentials to Office 365. In that case, we're able to back up OneDrive and SharePoint and email, etc. So we're able to bring all of that in. So this gives you offsite storage for security and redundancy. Now, admittedly, it is honestly very unlikely that a Microsoft data center will actually have enough damage to it where they lose everything. They are very redundant. They do their own internal backups, but malicious deletion or even accidental deletion is something they can't really defend against. It's a very simple interface, very easy to work with, very easy to restore data that may have been lost or deleted. And the final back piece of this is the cloud archiving service. And it's not often considered as part of security. I consider it to be part of security for multiple reasons, but usually this matters more for legal reasons and compliance reasons, depending on what industry you're in. We've all heard stories of emails being deleted or physical mails being deleted, printouts being deleted, etc. The cloud archiving service is actually there specifically for those kinds of cases. It's a journaled archive. It is searchable by the users. It is not alterable by the users. With Office 365, it's actually possible, unless there's a litigation hold in place, it's actually possible to delete emails and remove them from the system and make them unfindable. With the journal archiving system, which we have here, that can be kept safe. It's an immutable journaled archive. They cannot damage it. They cannot alter it. It's there. It is safe. It is certified. It's very easy to search. It's fully recoverable. There's even a web app for it. There's a web app for it, and there's actually a phone app that lets you search through the archive if you want to. So it's a pretty cool capability. And while not everybody thinks of that as part of security, I actually consider that part of this whole security picture. So to sum this all up, Microsoft does provide some very compelling reasons to move your entire organization over to Office 365, including basic security services. But their basic security and even their advanced security may not be enough. Barracuda completes that picture. We've got a full suite that fills in all of the gaps that you might have in a Microsoft Office environment. So we have email security, including the advanced threat protection capability. We offer offsite backups to restore data, which may be lost or purposely deleted. And we provide cloud archiving for regulatory and legal compliance if you're in an industry where that's actually needed. So let me leave you with a couple of resources here. This actually went faster than I'm thinking. Sarah, I'm actually running fast today. So the information on Essentials is www.acronis.com/essentials. That is where you can find all the information on the products I just went over, on Essentials, how it works, etc. If you want to see a demo, login.barracudanetworks.com/auth/login, and then click on one of the two demos that you can see. They're actually very, very closely related. One of them is very specific to Essentials. The other is more generic, looking at our cloud control solution, which is the single pane of glass UI that we use for all of our cloud managed solutions. And then if you want to run the threat scan, if you have an Office 365 instance now and you want to run it, scan.barracuda.com will let you see what threats already exist in your environment. If you're still on Exchange and want to get the Exchange threat scanner, talk to our friends over in the Intronis side of the house, and they will be more than happy to set you up with that and help you understand what's happening in your Exchange environment to possibly help with a move to Office 365. So thank you for watching. That's all I have. I'm going to go over and